Hello everyone, and welcome to this Diablo 3 dungeon guide for the Monk Raiment of a Thousand Storms set. We'll be going over how to set up your character, and we'll also detail out how to complete the primary dungeon objectives. Keep watching until the end of this video, where we show a full playthrough of the set dungeon with even more tips. Let's first take a look at the bonuses for the set so we'll know how to gear out the rest of our character. This set is pretty straightforward to play. It centers around Dashing Strike and your Spirit Generator, which both receive damage buffs from each other. The playstyle is you're going to alternate casting these two skills every few seconds. Dashing Strike is a really cool spell that teleports you across the screen. It's really fun to play with because you can cover a lot of ground very quickly, which is vital for this dungeon given its size. However, Dashing Strike now costs 75 Spirit, which is an enormous chunk of resource. Therefore, the primary focus for this setup is resource cost reduction and Spirit Generation. We get a bunch of resource cost reduction to reduce that 75 spirit cost down to something lower, and then we get some spirit generation to refill our tank back up. After those two priorities, you're basically just taking as much damage as you can. So in this setup, we are using 5 of the 6 set pieces in the helm, shoulders, hands, legs, and feet slots. And with Ring of the Royal Grandeur equipped in Kanai's Cube, this will activate the 6-piece set bonus. And that will allow us to use Cinder Coat in the torso slot, which has great resource cost reduction, and both Dashing Strike and the Spirit Generator in this build will use fire-based runes to benefit from the extra fire damage. In the wrist slot, we have Nemesis Bracers. This is absolutely mandatory for this dungeon. The dungeon has several speed pylons, and these bracers allow for 2 things. 1, it will spawn extra monsters that will make it easier to reach the maximum kill count, and 2, it will spawn elites that will synergize with the Engium weapon equipped in the cube. In the waist slot, we use Kairoshiro's Soul. This belt is a quality of life improvement that lets us gain the benefit of Sweeping Wind without having to worry about refreshing it throughout the dungeon. The 2 weapons are Flesh Rake and Crystal Fist, which both provide buffs associated with Dashing Strike, one increasing damage and one providing damage reduction. In the amulet slot, we are using the Hellfire Amulet to gain an extra passive. Here, any passive related to resource cost reduction, damage, or movement will be beneficial. In this particular case, we had the Fleet-Footed passive, which increases movement speed by 10%. For the rings, we are using Band of the Rue Chambers, which has increased spirit generation, and Obsidian Ring of the Zodiac, which has reduced cooldown. Reduced cooldown is helpful with the build to allow more frequent use of the Mystic Ally and Epiphany skills, both which provide great spirit generation. When it comes to rerolling stats on our gear, the desirable stats are resource cost reduction, cooldown reduction, and then anything that boosts damage output or survivability. Next, let's look at what to equip in Kanai's Cube. In the weapon slot, you want to use Engium, which has great synergy with the Nemesis Bracers. In the armor slot, we have Pride's Fall, which reduces resource costs. And in the jewelry slot, we have Ring of Royal Grandeur that allows us to equip Cinder Coat in the torso slot as mentioned previously. For gems, in the head slot, you'll want to use a Topaz for resource cost reduction. The torso, legs, and weapon slots all have emeralds for extra damage, and all 3 legendary gems we are using provide damage increases. Bane of the Trapped, Bane of the Powerful, and Simplicity Strength. For Paragon, the main priorities are movement speed and maximum spirit. Cooldown reduction and resource cost reduction are both desired as previously mentioned, then assign any other points to anything helpful for damage or defense. Now, let's go over the skills. Remember, for the set, we need both the Spirit Generator and Dashing Strike equipped to get the benefit from the set bonuses. For our Spirit Generator, we have Way of the 100 Fists with Blazing Fist, and we have Dashing Strike with the Radiance rune. The other active skills are all for Spirit Generation. Sweeping Wind with the Inner Storm rune, Mystic Ally with the Air Ally rune, Mantra of Healing with the Circular Breathing rune, and Epiphany with the Insight rune. For the passive skills, we continue the theme with Exalted Soul and Chant of Resonance. We get some cooldown reduction with Beacon of Yar, and lastly, we take the Guardian's Path, which increases our dodge chance while dual wielding. Now, let's go over the dungeon objectives. The first primary objective is to reach the golden chest at the end of the dungeon in under 2 minutes. This is what the chest looks like, and all you need to do is click on it and open it. Keep watching this video for a dungeon map that shows the location of the chest and best pathway to reach it within the time limit. The second primary objective is not to get hit by any succubus projectiles. There are several succubus creatures throughout the dungeon. This is what they look like, and here's what the projectiles look like that they shoot. Getting hit by a single one of these will fail the objective. Here are some more gameplay examples of what it looks like to fight these creatures and get hit. To avoid them, you'll have to be very careful when approaching a new screen of monsters, because one may be lurking in the shadows ready to shoot. One of the best strategies is to sidestep with Dashing Strike before going in for the kill. You can also use Dashing Strike to dash through the projectile to get in close. Even if you can't dash out of the way of a projectile, it is possible to dodge them. Another tip, once you see a succubus, make sure you deal with them while you have eyes on them. In this example, we ran past this succubus and backtracked down the same path a few seconds later, where sure enough, she was waiting in the shadows. To make it easier to avoid getting hit, we recommend to not cast Dashing Strike to the far edges of the screen. In this example, you can see the placement of the mouse cursor about halfway between the character and the outer edge of the screen to the upper right. Using controlled rateable bursts of Dashing Strike will ensure you have enough time to respond and avoid any ill-timed projectiles that would otherwise blindside you. Applying this technique will also allow you to better monitor your spirit levels. You want to make sure you always save enough spirit for 1 or 2 Dashing Strike casts to be able to avoid an unexpected projectile. The remaining objective to complete Mastery is to kill all of the monsters within the time limit, which is 510 monsters. The good news is that with Nemesis Bracers equipped, you will be spawning in more monsters into the map that will give credit toward the kill count, but will not increase the number of kills you need beyond 510. This means that you don't actually have to kill every monster and can leave several stragglers behind. Next, let's take a look at the dungeon map. It's a long path to the golden chest, here designated with a star. For the first phase of this map, you want to follow the red pathway for the most straightforward path to the chest. It's a pretty far distance, but luckily there are several speed pylons scattered around the map. The ones circled in yellow are the ones we'd recommend clicking along the way and saving the rest for the second phase after you reach the chest. You'll want to follow this red path, killing as much as practical along the way, but not losing sight of the main objective to reach the chest. If you are getting closer to the chest but think you may run out of time, then you can spam Dashing Strike cast past monsters without killing them to ensure you make it, and then you can always kill them on the way back. After reaching the golden chest, you'll then backtrack via the blue pathway to cover the ground you haven't covered yet. During the second phase, you can click on any remaining pylons. You'll also want to cover any side chutes, here designated in cyan color. When you get to this area, designated with the red circle, don't stress too much about following a particular path. Kill what you see, uncover the parts of your mini-map that you haven't seen yet, go where the monsters take you. You should have plenty of time, even if you have to backtrack a little, considering how fast you can move with run speed buffs and Dashing Strike movement. Also remember, you don't need to kill every single monster, so focus on larger packs. When you feel you've cleared this area thoroughly enough, then you can head all the way back up to the top right of the map and clear the remaining monsters. So now that we have the setup and you know how to approach the dungeon, let's head to it. Open your map, go to Act 1, then to the Old Ruins waypoint. The entrance to the dungeon is just to the northwest of the waypoint drop-off. And now, we're ready for a playthrough. Let's run through the dungeon and see what it looks like. Once inside the dungeon, cast Sweeping Winds. If you have Kayoshiro's Soul Belt equipped, you won't have to worry about refreshing this. Since you will not be backtracking this first leg of the dungeon, you will want to make sure that you don't skip much here. To take advantage of the 6-piece set bonus, you'll essentially alternate between casting Dashing Strike and your Spirit Generator, Way of the 100 Fists. In this second leg, it is okay to leave behind some monsters. You will be coming back to this section to finish clearing after you reach the golden chest. You don't want to spend too much time in this area up front and not give yourself enough time to reach the chest. Just keep moving steadily forward. Remember to use short controlled bursts of Dashing Strike. You want to find a balance between Dashing Strike and your Spirit Generator to always have enough spirit available for a couple of Dashing Strike casts in the event you face an unexpected succubus projectile. In this bottom corner of the dungeon, you want to have about 4 minutes of time remaining. If you have less than that, you may want to consider skipping even more just to make sure you reach the chest. When you see a projectile, try to sidestep it, use Dashing Strike to jump out of the way, or dash through it, and then go in for the kill. There was a great example of a succubus waiting in the shadows. When you reach this corner, you want to check how much time you have remaining. You have to reach the golden chest before the timer hits 3 minutes. If you only have 5 to 15 seconds left, you may want to cast Dashing Strike repeatedly as much as you can just to give yourself the best chance of making it. And there we reach the chest with 13 seconds to spare. And now we'll backtrack down the different pathway and finish off the remaining enemies. If you're struggling to complete the dungeon within the time limit, you may consider skipping to come backtrack and pick up this pylon. Very rarely are there many monsters in this little section. Remember in this section not to worry too much about what path you follow, just keep uncovering your minimap and killing what you see. Remember when you're running low on spirit to use your Mystic Ally or your Epiphany skills. Once you've uncovered most of this section, you can double check how many monsters you have remaining and you can head back up to the top right of the map. Since we know we've already cleared this section, we can really let the dashing strikes fly. And that's all. We completed in plenty of time. I wish you the best of luck in finishing this one. If you enjoyed this video and would like to see more content, please consider liking this video and subscribing to the channel.